Thank you. Thank you for coming to Offgrid in the city. We're going to talk about off-grid solar solutions on houses within municipalities, within city districts. First, a little bit about myself. I've been in the solar industry for quite a long time now, plus or minus 30 plus years in the industry. I have never really done anything else but solar. Been very instrumental in developing curricula for renewable energy institutes, training in third world countries. As you can see on the slide, I did a little stint in India for about 6 months, training them on how to utilize solar for their deplenished water resources that they had there, and also the power grid that was constantly going down. So the renewable energy aspect that I'm going to be talking about today is that off-grid solution. A lot of the stuff that you see in the past have been hot air, hot water, basic solar electric type systems. Today I'll be talking about systems that are totally off-grid that do not use utility lines for electricity. A little bit about Sacred Power Corporation. Sacred Power Corporation is my third solar startup. Again, like I said, I've been in the solar industry for quite a while now, working in the industry. I started my own company in 1985-ish, right after the first era of tax credits. And as such, I started several smaller companies that were basically residential based. And then I worked my way up to government type installations with Sacred Power Corporation. We predominantly do federal type projects on federal buildings. We do a lot of remote projects for USGS, Border Patrol, BIA, any kind of acronym that you could think about. That's the type of work that we do at Sacred Power Corporation. Now, the reliability of solar systems have gone up extremely in the past 10 to 15 years, which makes it nice for the residential consumer to be able to utilize solar on their houses. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. You know, the vision for me began in high school. I'm from a renewable energy family of sorts. We did, on one side of the family, did a lot of oil and gas exploration and natural gas, which is a good clean energy source as well. And being as such, I wanted to involve myself with renewables. I think that the life-changing thing for me was in high school, and I was looking at what I term as a photomill. A lot of people call it a radiometer. And it's the little veins that spin in the sun. And I was thinking, well, you know, if we can only harness that type of energy and utilize it in society. You know, that back in those days, I think everybody in the 70s that graduated in the 70s and 80s were looking at solar, and they could see that solar could be a solution for our energy needs in the United States and in the world. But we didn't know how to accomplish that. So there's a lot of us that started off in the industry in those days, and we started looking at different types of solutions. Off-grid has always been very, very important to me. I preach it on a daily level for the past 20, 30 years. I think that, you know, our reliance on that utility line is not a good thing for the sustainability of our society. So I look at it like a cell phone. You know, back a few years ago, probably about 15 years ago, we had landlines for our telephones. You couldn't have any kind of telephone service unless you had a landline. The landline people, Ma Bell, and all the people that were affiliated with Ma Bell laughed at the cell phone people, the entrepreneurs that were talking about, hey, cellular service, disconnect the line and you'll still have connectivity. They laughed at them, and that's the same thing that's happening today with the utilities. The utilities are laughing at the solar people basically and saying, hey, you'll never be able to cut the line from your house. You never will be able to be independent from that line coming into your house. I think with today's technology, in that all the new advances in photovoltaics, the new advances in battery storage, we're getting to the point where we can disconnect in the city limits from the utility. I think that in the very near future, in 5 years plus, battery technology will be as such that you can have batteries, good batteries in your home, disconnect from the utility, whatever that utility is, and have good, reliable power for your house. I've been living that dream for quite a while now, but I've been utilizing that dream and deploying that dream within my business and in my home as well. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, is how I'm using that type of off-grid mentality on the home that I'm living in. You know, these things, you know, as I talked about earlier, have led to different patents and stuff that I have with Sacred Power Corporation. You know, I want to talk a little bit about what you could do on your own home, and I want to talk a little bit about later how you can achieve those goals. The first thing that I had looked at was developing an idea which turned into a patent that people could have on the residence. Right now, that product is being deployed by the thousands worldwide. We're going to look at that patent, but in essence, we'd like to build a system that's based on the architecture of your existing building, and we'll talk a little bit about that. The resource, you know, we have the resource here in New Mexico, and it's still mind-boggling to me over the past 30 years that we're not utilizing that resource. Germany is so far ahead of us that we probably never will catch up, and they have a third of the amount of sunshine that we have here in New Mexico. So that in itself lends to, you know, we're not teaching the people, we're not training the people how solar can work for them, especially here in New Mexico. They say it can't be done. You can't disconnect from the grid. So my belief is that I want to show more and more people over the past 30 years how you can achieve this. You know, the project that we'll be talking about is my house. And here in New Mexico, we have what we call additive architecture, which means that we build things, we add things. We have a small house, we make the house bigger. We take that bigger house and make it bigger. As our families grow, as our needs grow, we add things to the facility. A lot of the homes in New Mexico are what we call that additive architecture type exercise in building. But when you're talking about solar design or being off-grid, it's not just about solar. It's about a dozen different types of things. The first thing I like to take a look at when I talk to people is the energy profile. What is it that you need to do to reduce your energy? Or what is it that you need to do to support the energy that you're using inside your household? And if you look at the graph, you'll see that heating and cooling, you know, is about, you know, 45, nearly 50% on all households. Lighting is, you know, a good third of that, 33%. And if you add the refrigeration, it's up to about 45, 50% as well. So you have heating and cooling and lighting, which includes all the power that you need for your appliances. So how do we take care of those loads? And then, of course, we have the hot water heating load as well. The first step, again, with any type of solution, I don't care, you know, if we're talking new equipment, if we're talking solar, it doesn't matter. It's like looking at the house itself, looking at the building, looking at the infrastructure that you have to work with. And it's, you know, looking at weatherization, making sure that that house is tight. It's very well insulated. Strategic planting. You know, if you're planting big trees to the west, that's a good thing because it keeps the sun from coming in where we can't control it from the west to heat up your house. Keeping the southern exposure of the building fairly free from trees and plants and whatnot. Low plants, maybe deciduous type trees that lose their leaves that allow the sunshine to come into the building in the winter months. So it's doing strategic planting techniques at the facility. Windows, you know, there's a lot of loss through windows. Single pane windows are obviously not very good. There's a lot of window technology on the market now that's double, triple pane with different types of films that are available, but it's looking at that envelope, the building envelope first. The orientation of the building, if you have that option, if you have the option of you're building a new building, you know, to orientate it correctly and implement all these strategies that we'll be talking about. You know, for the buildings that we have here in New Mexico, it appears to me over the past 33 plus years that radiant in-slab type technology is the best. And the reason why I say that is that I could take the water or the fluid that drives the radiant in-slab heating systems, and I can heat that up with thermal collectors. So you have two different types of collectors. You have ones that generate heat, and you have ones that generate power. The ones that generate heat are usually fluid-based. If I could take that fluid and put that hot fluid from the collectors into a slab and heat up that slab, I end up with what I call a hot rock. And as I have that hot rock will dissipate to the residence or to the building during the nighttime. It's very much like the old campers or the old cowboys sitting around the fire. they would have huge rocks, and as the fire died down, they would snuggle up next to the rocks if you're camping, and that would be the heat that would be generated for you to sleep by. It's pretty much the same thing that's happening, but on a more sophisticated level with homes. It's like putting that good, clean solar energy into the slab and letting it re-radiate to the house at nighttime. There's a lot of people that are strictly passive, which means there's no moving parts, and there's a lot of people that are active. I like a little bit of both: active systems pumping and driving energy into the slab, and then passive systems, which we'll talk about here in a second. Insulation is huge. I think that in any climate, doesn't matter if it's hot or it's cold, you know, insulation, if you have good insulation, it's going to stay cool in the summertime, and it'll stay warm in the wintertime. Doesn't matter what climate. I've utilized a lot of different types of building techniques on the houses that I live in, or the compound area where I live. And I found that adobe worked very well, and I used some of those adobe components to build the first house. I built the secondary cabana, what I call a pool cabana, and I built it out of ICFs. And in non-technical terms, it's insulated concrete forms, or insulated forms like you see on the slide there. Those insulated concrete forms are filled up with concrete, so the insulation and the mass proportions are very good. The house, or that cabana, that small structure that's on the property, is very well insulated. It stays pretty much 65 to 70 degrees year-round without having to heat or cool it. If you build it right to begin with, you don't have to heat or cool it here in New Mexico. Passive solar heating. The first stage of the house, when I first started building, I took an old stick or frame type house, a 1956 vintage, and faced the long way south. And then I started adding passive solar components to the house. And that means adding a lot of glazing to the south facing side in proportion with a lot of mass, which I used adobe to build with. So you have the mass behind the glazing. As the sun lowers itself in the sky, it shines and hits the darker adobe bricks behind the glazing or the glass, and that re-radiates heat to the house. Just like the radiant in-slab heating system that we talked about earlier, that re-radiates the heat to the house at nighttime. So during the daytime, that wall or those walls will get warm. At nighttime, when there's a temperature differential between the indoor ambient and the adobe or the mass blocks, it re-radiates to that cooler temperature. So you in essence heat the structure. So, you know, looking at different types of ventilation strategy, looking at stratification, the house that I had purchased in the South Valley here in Albuquerque on the grid was raised up about 3 feet. And so all of my solar components, all the south facing side of the infrastructure that you see there, lends itself to convection, which the heat that's generated from those rooms that are on the lower side re-radiate up the heat into the northern part of the building, heating up the northern rooms as well. So just a little bit of thought, making sure that there's plenty of shade on the trom walls or the solar walls during the summer months, so that way you don't have heating happening within the structure during the summer months. Little things like that, design things, can be very, very beneficial here in New Mexico. And you'll have a house, just like I live in, that I do not have to heat or cool with conventional means. Daylighting, you know, when we talk about structures, you've seen a lot of the daylighting. People talk about skylights, and skylights are great. They add a lot of light into the building, especially in the wintertime. You get the light plus you get the heat. But unfortunately, in the summertime with skylights, because there's nothing protecting them from the sun, that summertime heat comes in and heats the building, which increases your air conditioning load. So what I talk about, or when I talk about daylighting, I don't talk about skylights, but we talk about vertical surface windows that allow the sun to shine in during the winter months and heat up the house. And in the summer months, have a small overhang, which keeps the sun out. Daylighting is important because it keeps the lights off. As much sun as we can let in, or as much light as we can let in, the better the inside of the building is, the more comfortable it is. A house that's well lit up, you know, I'm very enthusiastic. I always wake up in a good mood because I have a lot of lighting around me. I can't even, when there's extended periods of cloudy weather in New Mexico, it's almost depressing to me because I am a sunny person. So I need that sunlight coming in and it gives me an added level of... Next slide, solar electric and hot water heating systems. Now, when we're talking about the passive components, the components that are not driven by mechanical means, there's also that active component that I talked about earlier. If you look at the slide on the right side of the small cabana house, which is part of the compound, what I call my little solar compound in the South Valley, on the right side of the PowerPoint presentation, you'll see the photovoltaic panels. Now, the photovoltaic panels are there to generate electricity. So you generate the power. The power for that particular building is all being generated from that small 2,000 watt solar array that's on the right-hand side of the building. That power is stored in batteries because when you're off-grid, you need to store the energy. There's nothing, you can't send the energy back into the utility and spin your meter backwards. When you're off-grid, you are the utility. So you need to store your energy yourself. So like I said, as battery technology becomes more and more advanced, the technology is there for us to store that good, clean solar energy, which we've had for dozens of years, into that solid-state battery bank. On the left-hand side of the house, you see a small collector, and that's used for solar domestic hot water heating. That 4-foot by 8-foot collector supplies all the hot water for the showers in that facility. It also provides all the extra amounts of heat that facility needs in the winter months for radiant end slab heating. So it's tied to the facility in two ways. One, for taking showers. It goes into that big 80-gallon tank that you see there on the left-hand side of the picture. All the solar energy is trapped or captured in that tank. At that point, the water is distributed either through the slab for heating if the slab is requiring heat, or it's stored in the tank for showers. So, it's such a wonderful thing to shower on a continual level for the past 30 years using solar. I don't have gas heat to have to heat up a hot water heater. All the water that I shower with, and it's, even this morning I was thinking about it, showers coming in, it's like, hey, this is free energy generated from my solar panel on my roof, and I don't need gas. I never needed gas for that facility. You can even do, things that are more luxury, considered a luxury item, the swimming pool system. On the lower part of the picture, there's solar pool heating panels up on the other part of the roof, on the older roof, for the swimming pool. So I don't use gas to heat up the swimming pool. There's no gas there. The swimming pool is heated up with the solar system. And that's the biggest concept, I think, that people have a hard time grasping, is that, if you have a solar system, you have to live like a hippie. It's like, no, you don't. You can live like any other person that's living in the more upscale areas with solar. You can live however you want, whatever it is that you enjoy. You can utilize those types of things utilizing solar equipment and solar power systems. In this case, I've had the swimming pool at that facility for about 10 years now. I've never heated it up with gas. It goes from around March to around the end of October, swimming pool temperature, for that period of time, which you will not get that with a regular pool that does not have solar collectors attached to it, or a gas heating type system. The other thing is, when I talk about solar, it's not, again, not all about solar. It's about all these other things that we're talking about. It's about energy efficiency. If you elect, or you decide, or you want to contemplate going off-grid in the city, you want to use the most energy efficient appliances that you possibly can. Energy efficient refrigerators, washers, dryers, TVs, all the lighting. Nowadays, if you would have listened to a presentation of mine 10 years ago, I would have been talking about getting away from incandescent bulbs. Because incandescent bulbs, what do they do when you touch them? An incandescent bulb burns you. And the reason why it burns you is it's generating heat, not light. So at that point in time, I was preaching and ranting about utilizing compact fluorescence. Go from incandescent bulb, which burns you, generates heat, which makes your air conditioning system stay on further and longer in the summertime, or go to compact fluorescent, which when you touch it, it doesn't burn you. It's a little, but it's not generating heat, so therefore it's not creating an extra load on your air conditioning system. Today, it's even better with the LED lighting systems. All the different color renditions that you could possibly think of for the bathroom, white light, soft white, dimmable type LEDs. Even the TVs are LED. So all this new technology using LEDs has really transformed our market in that a house that typically it's still very funny or amusing to me to see houses that have a 200 amp service entrance panel, big, all these breakers and stuff. The house that I'm living in is well over 4,000 square feet and uses less than 30 amps. 200 amp panel or 30 amps. And it's all about it's not about sacrificing, it's about using good solid state energy efficient equipment. Conservation is always a big thing. Once you decide to go off grid, even if you don't decide to go off grid, you could save a ton of energy of just keeping the system shut down. The lighting system shut down when you're not in the room. Motion sensors are good. Occupancy sensors are good. Timers are good. All these things are available to you to reduce your energy load. Even if you're using LED type technology, if you can reduce it further, the less energy you use, you become a prime candidate to be an off-grid customer. So those are very important things as well. What else? What else can you do? You have this off-grid home. That's the things that I ask myself all the time. What if? What if the power goes down? I'm good. And the power's been down many, 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 many times in the valley, and I'm the only light on in the block. What else can I do? Well, I can use the surplus energy to charge electric vehicle now. Electric vehicles are on the market, so I have a Chevy Volt. Charge the electric vehicle up with the extra energy. Now, not only am I powering my house, but I have my transportation. So I don't need the gas company. I don't need the utility. I don't need the fuel companies that sell gasoline. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm pretty self-sufficient now. What else can I do? I put in a water pumping system. What if, even though I am tied to the water utility in the South Valley, what if for some reason the water went out? And it has done that in the past. And I think that as people need water and as we have more and more water shortages, it might be nice to have your own well. I live in the valley. The water depth's around 20 feet. I drill to 80, 100 feet, have good clean water. I could utilize that for my gardens. And it's all solar driven. So it's like, now I don't really need the water or the utility company either, because I have my own water on the property as well. So it's looking at all those different things. What if the last several days in New Mexico have been cloudy and overcast and the wind's been blowing? What about a solar wind turbine? I do have a solar wind turbine on the house as well. So when the sun doesn't shine, I'm still generating free power from Mother Nature. If it's not wind, if it's not sun, I'll do wind. Either or, it doesn't matter. I'm getting that good, clean, renewable energy into the house. The next question that most people ask me is, well, how can I get there? And my response to them is that there's availability now within the federal government to get you tax incentives, whether they be tax credits, whether they be other incentives like the utilities have mandatory rates or payments that they have to give back to you in the form of rec credits. All these different things are available to you, but I'm pretty certain that they won't be available to you for a long period of time. What are you going to do then? So I tell people right now, where there's incentives available to you, battery technology is not quite there. It's getting there with the advent of electric vehicles, very close. Lithium ion, other solid state battery technology, wait on the batteries, but right now, get your generator up on your roof, your solar generator, because that's the biggest piece or one of the larger pieces to accomplishing an off-grid home. Look at all the things inside your building and do all the things that we talked about, using energy efficient appliances and lighting and all those things. Get your solar system where the incentives are available. Put that generator up on your roof. Doesn't matter from what company. We have a residential arm at Sacred Power Corporation, but it doesn't matter. Get that solar generator up on your roof now that you can. And there's incentives available for that. I guarantee you, and you can mark my words, just like I guarantee people about incandescent going to compact fluorescent 10 years ago, I guarantee you within 5 years, Otis's guarantee, that battery technology will be where it needs to be for you to afford it, to tie into it. So you've been developing You've been getting your house ready. You got your little solar system on your roof. It's generating power. It's spinning the meter backwards. 5 years, Odes said battery technology is going to be where it needs to be, and I can go ahead and buy my battery system now, tie it into my solar system, and cut the grid. And that's how you go off-grid in the city. Thank you so much for your time. If you need to contact me, I'm at Sacred Power Corporation, 505-242-2292.